Welcome back. There's different types of floods, and we'll talk about kind of four main types. There's subcategories, but we'll focus on the following four. Before we jump into this, let me give you part of the super secret code. It is the number 0. You got me? The number 0. One more time, 0. So the types of floods include flash floods, river floods, storm surges, and urban floods. Of these four, quite often we get 3 of these, storm surges being the only one we don't here in Arizona. That's more of a coastal thing. Yeah, we're not really on the coast, but we can get these other 3 for sure. So let's talk about them. So a flash flood is caused by heavy or excessive rainfall in a short period of time, generally less than 6 hours. You get a bunch of rain all at once. That water doesn't have time to soak in or can't soak in, depending on the saturation level of the ground already or how compact it is. So if you get a bunch of rain, it might flood. So flash floods are characterized by usually large volumes of water flowing very fast after heavy rains that rip through riverbeds, urban streets sometimes, or mountain canyons, sweeping everything that's in front of them. They can occur within minutes or a few hours of excessive rainfall. And in fact, you could be miles away from where the storm is. And it can be bright and sunny where you are. But this flash flood, so much rain was dropped, rips through a little river channel and kind of gets to an area and can cause some damage and death. These are more common in areas with a dry climate and rocky terrain because water can't infiltrate into the ground. So you get a lot of water dumped onto mountains and it's going to rush right off. Could cause a flash flood. You get a lot of water dumped in the desert. It can't really soak into the ground. The ground might be too compact or full of other minerals, preventing that. The water is going to flood. It's going to move fast. So here's an image of a very common image of someone in a flash flood. Oh, I can drive. I can drive through that. I can drive through that water. Yeah. Well, that's what happens. They're the most dangerous kinds of floods to life because they combine the destructive power of a flood with just incredible speed and unpredictability. They can just show up out of nowhere. Again, they can happen with little or no warning, and generally they pose a greater threat to life than property. Usually these are flowing through some sort of small river stream channel, where there's maybe a little depression in the road, and people are like, "Oh, it's only a few inches. I can drive through that." Can you? Can you? Can you really? Oh, I can drive through that. No. No, you can't. We have something in Arizona called the stupid motorist law. I'll tell you more about that in class, but yeah, for such instances as this, if you see water on the road, just don't even bother. Don't even drive through it. Just don't. Turn around, go back another way, find a different road. So that's flash flooding. What about river floods? This is the second type. And before we do, let me give you another part of the super secret code. It is the number 2. You got me? The number 2. So river floods occur when water levels rise over the top of a riverbank due to excessive rain or even snowmelt. They can be caused by tropical storms. So these are the remnants of hurricanes making their way onto land, just dumping a bunch of rain over an extended period of time, or some combination of rainfall and or snowmelt. So river floods, or when rivers flood, they're more common for larger rivers in areas with a wetter climate. Think the Midwest, in Kentucky and Tennessee. We're probably more concerned with river floods there. You get, again, excessive runoff, long-lasting storms, melting snow, but it really causes a slower water level rise over a larger area than a flash flood. So in this case, you have a river flooding, and people that live in these areas know enough. Well, it's raining and raining. The river's going to go up and up and up slowly. you can get out of the way. So it's not a surprise. It's not going to just, come after you like real quickly. It's not going to get to you real quick. It's slowly going to rise, the water level slowly going to rise in the river. So it generally causes greater loss of property. So more damage to buildings, houses, roadways than life, because again, this flood might take days or weeks for it to kind of crest. And so, people have fair enough warning. It looks like there's a river channel here, and when you see something widespread like this, that's typically river flood. Typically river flood when you're looking at something so, widespread. What's happening? Storm surge. This is also caused by forces generated from severe storms, wind, as well as waves. So a storm surge is when you get a big storm coming on land onto coast. Hurricane, tropical storm, or even a large thunderstorm. It's a lot of wind is pushing essentially those waves onto land. It's pushing that ocean water up onto land. It's extremely dangerous because it's capable of flooding large coastal areas. It's often the greatest threat to life and property from a hurricane. It's not the wind that's doing a lot of the killing or destruction. It can, but it's not the wind itself, but the wind, as a hurricane wind's blowing, think about if you're in a pool, next time you're swimming, or taking a bath, just if you blow on the water, the ripples kind of get pushed away from you, and it builds up a little bit. Well, same thing with a hurricane. When you got 100 miles an hour wind ripping over the ocean, it's going to blow and push that water up onto land. Hurricane Katrina in 2005 is a perfect example of the damage and devastation caused by a surge. Almost 1,500 people lost their lives during Hurricane Katrina, and many of those deaths occurred directly or indirectly as a result of storm surge. So, when you get a lot of deaths in a hurricane, it's usually the flooding that does that. So you can see how the wind is just, there's so much wind. It's pushing the waves and the whole water and the whole ocean is pushing all of that up onto land. And you can see it's, the water is starting to make its way onto land. So that would be, it looks like the beginnings of storm surge. And then you get an urban flood. Urban floods occur when an urban drainage system is overwhelmed and water flows out onto the street and nearby structures. So I know I get these in my neighborhood. Along the roads, there's little inlets for water, and the little pipes drain down into those little parks, those depression parks that you might, have seen in some neighborhoods. Again, I know mine has one, a few of them. So right next to the roads, again, you'll see like these little sewer holes, and they're pipes that go down to those little depressed little parks, little green areas. And so any rain that falls onto the road goes into these sewer pipes and gets pumped over into or just flows into those depressions. And there'll be some water there, and then it'll kind of soak in. So whether it's that or flooding on the streets, that's urban flood. It can occur gradually, and it's usually not flowing water. It's usually just standing water. So it does provide people time to move to safe locations. The water is usually shallow as well. It typically creates no immediate threat to life, but may cause economic damage. It could damage the road, or I know when this happens in my neighborhood, the road has been damaged, the sidewalk has been damaged, the parks have been damaged, but not necessarily houses. But it could. One thing that you want to be careful about is that these urban floods can cause sewage leaks. So I can't stress this enough. Never play in floodwater. Never let your kids play in floodwater. There's many times, after a rainstorm, when there's a little bit of water in those parks, you see kids and families splashing around. On a number of times, I pulled up, rolled down my window, and said, "Hey, you're playing in pee and poop. You might want to go and shower. Bye-bye." yeah, you know, it could be mixing with sewage. Anything that's on the road as well, dirt, grime, oil. I mean, it's all poisons. It's yeah. Never play in floodwater. Never play in standing water. Never play. Yeah, no, no, and no. All right. There's the reason it floods. We have urban floods is typically, especially around here, is there's no open soil that can be used for water storage. There's no place where the water really soaks in because it's just so developed here. You know, there's just so many roads and driveways and houses. There's really not a lot of open soil for this stuff to soak in. Streets and roads don't suck in water. It falls on a street, it's got to go somewhere because it's not soaking into the street itself. So urban floods, again, it's usually just standing water. They're doing what I told them not to do, playing in flood water. It's not usually flowing, so it's not dangerous, but it can cause some damage to property. Yeah. So let's go ahead and pause here, and when we come back, we'll go through some flooding facts, maybe some not so fun facts. I'll see you back here in just a second.